Hi, my name's Ray and I've been keeping bees now for 7 years, and this is one of my main hobbies. When I was about 30 years old, I went to a country house, and I can't remember where it was now, but they had something called an observation hive which showed the bees working, and it's a smallish hive with a glass side, and you could see all the bees busy inside, and that was something that I found quite interesting, and it always stayed with me for a long time. So we've just turned into Hedges Farm, which is where the bees are kept, and they're on the edge of a woodland, and this is quite a long drive. But last year on the field on the left, on the edges, you would have seen lots of oxeye daisies which the farmer had planted. There are some this year, but not quite so many. It took me until I retired before I felt I had enough time to really start beekeeping. So I'm going to put my boots on so the bees don't crawl up my trousers. I attended a course with the Oxfordshire Beekeepers Association, which was once a week in the evening. Put my veil on. This is the most important piece because they know that your face is your precious bit. After I'd been on the beekeeping course, I then bought a small quantity of bees which come in a box, which is called a nuke box. And then I put them in a hive and started beekeeping in my garden. After starting with one hive, I ended up with 3 hives because each year the bees want to multiply, and so they threaten to swarm. So then you have to split them up and put them in another box. And my gloves. It then came to the stage where we had too many bees in the garden when my wife was working near the beehives. So a local farmer had said he wanted to have some bees on his land, so we moved them down to his land, and he's very pleased to have them there. So I give him some honey every year, and he lets me go down to my bees whenever I like, and that's a very good arrangement because they're a long way from any houses, so they can't really annoy anybody. So I'm just going to start the smoker, which will just let the bees know that we're coming. Get this corrugated cardboard alight. My first experience around a beehive was when I was towards the end of my course, and there were about 5 people standing around this beehive, and we all had a chance to pick up a frame of bees, which is where the bees store their honey, or the queen lays her brood. The thing I can remember most about it is that one of the people was stung, but it was very good seeing the instructors, how quickly they could actually look and see what they wanted to see in the beehive. The fascinating thing is in the beehive is how the queen, there's one queen and all the bees work for that queen, and so all the workers are going out foraging or helping to raise the brood that the queen has laid, because they're mostly female workers in the beehive, and there are some males, but the males only have one function, and that's to mate with a new queen. There's a little honey there. This is the sealed honey, but that's not very much. So this one, which is called a super, we'll see if there's much in there. Now you see, that's all honey sealed, there's still a bit there which is not sealed, and we can't extract it till we're sure that there's not too high a water content, because if you have honey with too high a water content it could ferment. One of the main things that people think of with bees is either their pollinating function or the fact that they produce honey. Now with my bees, I always leave them enough honey to get them through the winter. This still allows us to take off honey from the hive, which they don't need. At the end of the year, I'd expect to leave them one of these boxes for their winter feeding. This one has got some pollen in. In those cells there's pollen. This wire mesh is called the queen excluder, and the queen is too big normally to come through these gaps, but the bees can get through the gaps. Sometimes when you open these boxes, if you've got a strong colony, all the bees will be all over that, and there'll be more bees in the other boxes as well. I have been stung. Not every time I go and see my bees, but sometimes I might get stung once and occasionally twice. Usually it's because of my own fault, because I've either picked something up and there's been a bee underneath my fingers, or I've been a bit clumsy, and that tends to upset the bees. Generally they are very well behaved. Well, I say, you've been very well behaved today. That noise, I think, is them trying to keep cool. Oh, look at that. That's I could extract that one because there's no honey around there, so I would scrape with a sharp sort of knife, slide the knife along, take these cappings off, and then spin it in the spinner. But that side, you see, there is some honey that hasn't been capped. Well, it looks as if they've even been in there to get some food. So here I've got a store where I have various pieces of the frames that I make into these, which we then put wax in and put them in the hive, which you would have seen today. So these are spare boxes that sometimes I have to use, and these are boxes where we can just take a few frames of bees, or I use them to bring back the frames of honey. So this is the extractor where I put the three frames in here and spin them round with this wheel, and the honey comes out of the tap at the bottom. Beekeeping is a good pastime because you see nature, and it's when you go to the hive, it's usually in the countryside and it's quiet, and you can just sit and watch the bees working, and they are such a good team in that they're all working to one end for the queen. There are lots of places where one can go on courses for beekeeping, although there are places now in cities where there is a consideration that there are possibly too many honeybees, where people are putting them on rooftops, and there's not enough forage in the parks and around the gardens of the cities, such that other pollinators could be not able to get the food that they want to get. So one has to consider taking up being a beekeeper very responsibly, I think.